And I'm honored to introduce another person who this certainly would not have happened without, Representative Ellen Reed from New Hampshire, the lead sponsor of this 28th Amendment bill.
Thank you. So I first came to the money in politics, or rather money out of politics movement as a college student, a grad student, and as a city bus driver, a working grad student. But I was an activist, a good college student activist, and as an activist and working student, I found myself, like many of us here, spread too thin. We have so many issues that we care about. For me, it was healthcare, it was war, gun violence, climate, so many things. I decided that I had to focus on one issue, and I realized that there was one issue that was at the heart of all of the other problems, and that was the fact that we no longer had a functioning republic, but in effect, a pay-to-play plutocracy. Now, it doesn't matter what your political leaning is. It doesn't matter what issue is your issue, whether it is climate and healthcare or government spending and industrial subsidies that end up raising taxes on everyone. There will be no progress on any issue, no real common sense progress that reflects the will of the people until we have a government that actually represents people. It's a novel concept, I know. Represents people. And not wealthy special interests. You know, a democracy, like kind of a functioning democracy like we were taught we had when we were back in third grade. Now, the tendency for the wealthy and the powerful to use their wealth and power, to hold on to their wealth and power and increase their wealth and power is not anything new, as a story as old as human history, and it's gone on throughout our country's history. But as you all know, in 2010, one of the most widely reviled Supreme Court decisions in modern history, the court advanced on years of bad precedent and confirmed that in the eyes of the court, that money was the same thing as free speech and that corporations are considered people for the purposes of constitutional rights. And this started a nationwide movement to call for a constitutional amendment, not so much to change the Constitution, but to clarify what most everybody already believes was the intent of the founders, that the wealthy shouldn't be able to buy influence more than the poor. Now, we know that you can't trust the foxes to guard the chicken coop, and so it's no surprise that Congress in 9 years' time since the Supreme Court decision, almost 10 years' time, has not been able to pass an amendment. So the focus shifted onto the states and having state legislatures call on Congress to act. And then when those state legislatures wouldn't necessarily act, the focus went down to the town level to put pressure on those state legislatures to act. This is the most local, most direct level of democracy. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank Public Citizen and Move to Amend in particular for helping at least the people in New Hampshire with that town resolution process. In New England, we have this great thing called town meetings. All residents of a town get to vote on a wide variety of questions, and any resident can add an item to that, what we call a town warrant, by just having 25 voters' signatures. So in 2012, 2 years after the Supreme Court decision, the first two towns in New Hampshire passed town warrant articles calling for a constitutional amendment. By 2014, we had 69 towns, which is 1/3 of all the towns in New Hampshire, and then we started to see movement in the state house. Now, I was not elected then, I was just an activist. We now, as has been said, have 82 towns that have called for this. And these are overwhelmingly conservative towns. And almost every town that brings this up, it is usually passed on a unanimous voice vote. Very frequently, if it's voted on, it's 70, 80, 90% margin. And it's no surprise because in poll after poll in New Hampshire, 80 to 90% of people across the political divide want this. Since 2014, a resolution has been in the State House every single year. The first year, it passed both chambers. It died in a committee of conference. The second year, we had, I believe, 7 Republican co-sponsors. It passed the Senate unanimously, passed the House, was a motion to reconsider was called, and then it failed by 1 vote. 2017, 2018, and then finally 2019. All of these happened, and finally this year, HB 504 passed both chambers same language. Making New Hampshire the 20th state. And I tell you all this brief history of the struggle in New Hampshire, for those of you in states that have not passed this yet. It takes perseverance. It takes the willpower to keep trying after being repeatedly disappointed. Money, as you know, is incredibly powerful. In fact, a lot of people say money is power. But in history, there is one thing, and I think only one thing, that has been able to overcome that power, and that is the power of the people. It takes rabble-rousing bus drivers like myself and massage therapists like Corrine and retired teachers and you name it. And it takes time. In this case, it took 5 years. But it does work, and New Hampshire is proof. So thank you.